Priscilla is a brand new biopic about Priscilla Presley and Elvis Presley's relationship. And this is an interesting movie because last year we had Austin Butler's Elvis film, which I didn't do a review of, but I loved. I was so surprised by that one because I'm typically not a huge Baz Luhrmann fan. But now going into this, I was kind of interesting to see what would be the different depiction and idea of Elvis here. And I have to say that making any comparison between the two films is almost null and void. There's no reason to make that because both of these films are absolute different versions as well as two different stories being told. And with Elvis, last year, that film primarily focused on the icon of who Elvis was and showed some darker moments in his life, but showed who, again, Elvis was to the world, to America, and all of that. What Priscilla mainly focuses in on is who was Elvis to Priscilla Presley, his wife. How did she feel? How did the relationship stem? Where did it all go? And in a way, this kind of feels like a horror film in some way, shape, and form. And not your typical one where there's intensity and rationality to it all. But out of all the films that I've ever seen that really deal with toxic relationships, this movie, I felt, got it the most. And I think there's going to be a lot of interesting discussions on Priscilla itself. So make sure to leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button for more movie content like this because I love talking movies on a daily basis. And if you're watching this, then you're probably in the same boat. So make sure again to hit that like and subscribe button and let's keep talking about Priscilla. This is, of course, from A24, directed by Sofia Coppola, also written by Sofia Coppola, based off the book by Priscilla Presley. And it's about when teenager Priscilla meets Elvis Presley. The man who is already a rock and roll superstar becomes someone entirely unexpected in private moments, a thrilling crush, an ally in loneliness, and a vulnerable best friend. And again, this stars Cailee, Spaeny, who plays Priscilla, of course, Jacob Elordi as Elvis. Now, everything that I kind of just said in that synopsis, those three final things: a thrilling crush, an ally in loneliness, and a vulnerable best friend. When reading that synopsis, it sounds like the synopsis is talking about what Elvis was for Priscilla. But watching the film, those three things is what Priscilla was for Elvis. And I think for me, this is very much a roller coaster ride of emotions of what you'll feel through this very poetic and quiet movie that does not focus on the bombastic and big moments of Elvis and even their relationship. Not even their wedding per se, it's such a small little glimpse on their entire history, but it showcases how Priscilla felt throughout her entire life for the most part. And I think that's actually one thing that I really love is how Sofia Coppola really sets up this movie, how it continuously grabs you. And there's some things that I learned in here that I didn't even learn in this last Elvis movie specifically about the relationship. And in fact, when I go back and watch that movie, that was the weakest thing for this. So I actually find that both these movies are a fantastic companion piece when dissecting who Elvis was and in general as a person. And for me, Sofia Coppola absolutely did a phenomenal job directing this movie. I actually think this is one of her best directed films ever. I've really much loved a lot of her movies, but this is just high up there on the list. And a lot of that goes down to how she captures these moments. It starts out with Priscilla in 9th grade, who she gets invited to pretty much go meet Elvis Presley at his house while they're overseas in the military. And from there, it just stems. They have this nice chemistry, but it's a little bit awkward and weird because Elvis is way older than her. She's not even very much just joined into high school. And all these smaller moments of the relationship building up adds to the uncomfortability of how those relationships are now looked at nowadays. Now, even back then, it's a little bit snickery. People make fun of them behind their backs, but you can clearly see that there's something stemming there. But it always felt like Priscilla was the person being hidden in the back. Because what happens when Elvis left overseas? Priscilla was left alone for a year or two. Barely talked to Elvis, literally no contact. She's seeing all these newspapers of him swooning and being with other celebrities. And it can be looked at as celebrity gossip, but we all know what the truth was. And I feel like for me, what I really loved about that is that it's all from Priscilla's perspective. You see what she is feeling, that jealousy. You as an audience member feel that jealousy with Priscilla. And the way that that's all captured is just perfect. Like, for me, I truly, it put me in some shoes that I just had never felt. And to feel that toxicity in a film, and to feel that you are in a toxic relationship, one that is very manipulative. If you've ever been in that before, you're going to feel a lot of PTSD throughout this movie. Because what happens when she does finally go with Elvis and is in Graceland? Well, she feels isolated. She feels trapped. That's the biggest thing, is that this film makes you feel trapped and isolated from the world. And for Sofia Coppola to very much be able to capture that on film and make audience members feel the same way that Priscilla is, it's a special, unique direction that only few directors can capture. And, you know, as isolated, you've seen tons of films where they take place in like one central area, and it's not like that this film does that, but it always feels like you're in one central moment of your life. Being, again, a thrilling crush, an ally in loneliness, and a vulnerable best friend. That's all Elvis is very much asking from her. But she needs more than that. Elvis is wanting this person who somewhat understands what he went through. For Priscilla to go through these moments, it is very heartbreaking to see, because you're just seeing her struggle when she wants more and Elvis is not giving it to her. But then she sees on the newspapers that he's swooning with some other woman, and it's like that's what she wants. At the same time, he's just expecting that someone's there to listen to his calls, to listen to his rambling, to listen to his readings. And it's very fascinating how this film was portrayed on that. And on top of that, Cailee Spaeny, who plays Priscilla in here, I mean, I've never seen her in anything, but she's incredible. And Sofia Coppola, as a director who probably casted her and probably was with help with the casting director, but phenomenal. One of the best performances of 2023. And mainly for the fact that you see her from 9th grade to decades later, and it never feels awkward. Like, they picked an actress who could look young, but age her up perfectly. And I again, makeup, prosthetics, all that sort of stuff, I don't know what they did behind the scenes, but Cailee really won it over. It really made me feel that I had watched, in the span of like a 2-hour runtime, made me really feel like I had watched Priscilla's entire life from 9th grade up until when their relationship had ended. And I really love how the entire film climaxes on that, and all the loneliness that she feels, because you are in her footsteps. You are in her vision, her eyes, when she's thinking, what she's thinking that Elvis is doing when she's not with him. You constantly feel that you are in Priscilla's shoes. A lot of that goes to Sofia Coppola's direction, but a lot of it also goes to Cailee's performance. It's incredible what she was able to portray here, and it really made me feel like I was there. The conversation will, of course, be, like I mentioned, everyone's going to be trying to compare Elvis to Priscilla, and of course Jacob Elordi and Austin Butler's performances are absolutely going to be tried to be compared to, but it's the same thing. It's null and void. You can't compare the two. Both were in two different contexts, and I actually really loved, I've said it, I love what Austin Butler did in Elvis, but I also really love what Jacob Elordi did here. And him as an actor, I've liked. I haven't been the biggest fan of Euphoria. His character kind of just annoys me. The kissing booth wasn't really my cup of tea. I'm very excited for Saltburn, because I heard that's probably and possibly his best performance yet. And I think this is up there as well as showcasing me how strong of an actor he is. Now, I think what Sofia Coppola was going for in needing to cast an Elvis is more of someone that can fill the silhouette of who Elvis is. And the reason I say that is because the first notice that you get to see of Elvis, it very much looks like the silhouette of him. You barely can see his face. It's covered by darkness, but you can tell it's him. Not by his voice, not by anything, but by the silhouette of how he looks. And I really love how Jacob Elordi portrayed that, because it feels like he's filling a void in a story being told from someone else's perspective. And from that, You know, he nails the mannerisms, he nails the movements, he nails the voice, but he also nails the look. And for me, what really needed to be shown here was that silhouette of who Elvis was to Priscilla. And in a way, Priscilla felt like a prisoner while Elvis was her warden, giving her orders, giving her things that she needs to do. Elvis just used Priscilla. And while there were shining moments throughout their entire relationship, and I'm sure lots of love, it's those manipulative and toxic moments that really make it feel all their own. And I think people are going to be very much able to relate to this movie if they've ever been in those instances. If not, maybe you won't be. But you're definitely going to feel some tension there. And that's the reasons that I think Priscilla is brilliant. From the cinematography to the quiet, subtle score, this film is all made by all those technical marvels, but it really comes down to Sofia as the director and writer, and of course, the two main performances in here, where it's an isolated film that makes you feel like you are a prisoner. So, with that said, I think Priscilla was an absolute poetic and beautiful, touching biopic that really focuses in on a relationship that many people probably idolized from far away, but when you actually dive into the deeper nuance of it, there's a lot of darkness to that all. Someone who feels isolated, lonely, and in a lot of different moments needing more from that life. And I think when you had back in the day seen so many people swoon and love Elvis and cheer for him and wish they were in Priscilla's footsteps, we go down to Priscilla and see how she was feeling. And I think a lot of that goes to how we idolize so many different celebrities and wish we were maybe them, or wish we were their significant other, or wish we were their kids. But you never know what they were actually dealing with and how they were treating others. And I think that is some of the most touching and toughest stuff to watch through watching Priscilla, and I found this movie to be brilliant. Now, as just kind of a point of reference, there is one little issue I have with it, and I think that's just some of the pacing. About an hour in, I started definitely feeling the pacing. I checked my watch, and I'm like, oh, okay, we still got an hour left. Okay, and I feel like in the back half, it started to rush through a couple significant moments that I wish they would have spent a little bit more time on. And specifically, I know it's all from Priscilla's point of view and how her relationship was with Elvis. I personally wouldn't have minded seeing a little bit more development around Priscilla's whole life and who she had interacted with, but I understand the concept and what they were going for here, but I just do have to warn that, again, this isn't like a full-on thing. You're not going to learn everything about Priscilla. It is very much about how she felt within that relationship, so you do be warned on that. I can see some people finding themselves a little bit disappointed in those manners, and like I mentioned, just sometimes you can feel the length. I feel like the film had a couple pacing issues just here and there, some repetitiveness. I understand the whole point and the purpose of it. It just, for me, kind of dragged just a hair. But with that said, I thought this movie was phenomenal, and I think you should absolutely check out Priscilla later this year. So with all that said, I'm going to give this film an A-. I was shocked. I honestly went into this movie being like, I feel like this is going to be the one Sofia Coppola movie that's just really not for me, and honestly a little bit boring, but it wasn't. And I say that because you never know what you're getting with an A24 film. You might be stunned, you might be shocked, you might feel relatable, or you might watch it and be a little bit bored. And for me, A24 knocked it out of the park with this Sofia film, and I can't wait to see more from, of course, Sofia Coppola and whatever she has up next. Thank you so much again for watching this, guys. Make sure to share your thoughts down below, and of course, until next time, stay classy.